Good morning, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Joanne Toronto.
And I'm Tom Matthews. And today we are talking about why do deals fall apart after an offer has been accepted? We're seeing this more prevalent today than we have in years past. And so Joanne and I want to talk about what are the top three reasons why a home might fall apart or why a deal might fall apart. So Joanne, what's the top three reasons?
So when we talk about a deal falling apart, what we mean is a listing, a home comes to the market, they receive an accepted offer, and then it is marked in the multiple listing service as being under contract. If it comes what we call to the status of back on the market, BOM, a lot of people have trepidation
Yes.
about a home that comes back to the market, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are the reasons that these homes come back to the market? And there's three, really prominent reasons that are the most common, right?
Yep.
So the first and foremost, sometimes people just get cold feet. And cold feet can come at any time. It can come the day after an accepted offer. It can come on after a purchase and sale. And the parameters of how that's dealt with in a transaction are different depending on the timing of it. But the important thing for a buyer to know is that there's nothing materially wrong with the house, right, Tom?
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, exactly. But buyers who walk away and get cold feet have to know there is risk involved.
Right.
You do put money up with an offer. You do put money up with a purchase and sale. So if you're going to get cold feet, do it before you sign the purchase and sale, or you put away that 5% deposit. But yeah, cold feet's one.
Yep.
The second one is a home inspection.
Yeah.
For the last, I'd say 24 to 36 months, we haven't seen home inspections.
Right.
Now we're seeing home inspections again. And I think buyers are not being properly educated by a lot of buyer agents as to what to expect at a home inspection, because your homes aren't perfect.
Right.
Every home is going to have an issue. My home wouldn't pass a home inspection.
Even new construction will have a long list of things that come up on a home inspection.
Yeah, and I think what I'm seeing right now, and Joanne, you can correct me, but we're seeing people who are kind of over negotiating home inspections because they haven't had the right to have a home inspection in 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And so that's another kind of big reason why deals are falling apart.
Now, if something comes up on a home inspection, Tom, does that make it disclosable to the next people?
It depends. It really depends on whether it's a black and white issue or if it's a gray issue. So an example of a black and white issue is the radon comes in above 4.0. That's disclosable. That's black and white. It is what it is. But if a home inspector says, hey, look, the boiler is fully depreciated. It's met its life expectancy. It could last a week or it could last another 10 years. That's not necessarily disclosable because that's kind of opinion.
Right.
So, it really depends on what comes up as to what might be disclosable to another party.
So I think something to keep in mind with home inspections is that sometimes, different things have different meaning to people, right? So radon can be typically repaired. It's fairly inexpensive. It's like you mentioned, it's a black and white thing. It can be solved. Versus things that are unknown or you just don't know how to repair it, which is why working with an experienced buyer's agent matters. So sometimes when a house comes off the market because of home inspection, it is because something is wrong with the house. But known material defects are disclosable in the state of Massachusetts. So you don't have to fear these homes because somebody who is used to living in homes that are new construction when they buy are going to feel very differently, especially if they move to the Northeast, where we have the oldest housing stock in the country. So they just may be unprepared for what comes up on a house that's built, 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Right, exactly.
So what's the third reason?
So the third primary reason why a house might fall apart is the financing contingency. So again, another contingency we haven't seen in 2 or 3 years, but now we're seeing them again, which is the financing contingency, which is typically anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks after signing a purchase and sale.
Right.
And this is where the buyer is getting all of their documentation done to get the loan. And unfortunately, we're in a climate where we are seeing people losing their jobs. And if that happens within that financing contingency, they no longer qualify for the home, and they can get their money back and the deal has to go, kind of falls apart.
Right.
And that's challenging because then a home is under contract for 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Right.
And buyers now inherently think there's something really wrong with the house.
Right.
And we've seen this a couple of times lately. And we've been having the hard time of convincing buyers there's nothing wrong with the house. There was something wrong with the buyer.
Right.
But that's like the fear that every seller has, that if your house comes off the market and then comes back on, like it's going to hurt your ability to sell for more later.
Right.
And typically that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, but the big messaging here that we want to get across is that when homes come back to the market, it oftentimes has nothing to do with the actual real estate and has to do with the people who are involved in the transaction for personal reasons.
Right.
And it's an unfortunate situation. And as agents, we try to bulletproof our transactions.
Absolutely.
We're trying to make sure that when you as a seller accept an offer, you are then going to get to a closing table. But you can never foresee somebody losing their job.
Right.
You know, those types of things do happen. And that's why we have contracts in
Right.
place. But the important thing to know from a buyer's perspective is that when a home comes back to the market, it does not necessarily mean there's something wrong with it.
Right. Right. And I mean, and sometimes there is, and we look around for that, but oftentimes there isn't. And oftentimes it's buyers who just, some circumstance happened in their life and they couldn't move through with the deal. And it may be an opportunity for you as a buyer waiting for a house, like, and you have to be ready to seize that opportunity.
Absolutely. Opportunity is everywhere, and you want to capture it when it becomes available.
Exactly. Exactly. This was a great topic, Joanne.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for listening to another edition of Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Tom Matthews.
And I'm Joanne Toronto. Cheers.